Şeyini onu açsaydı açacak açacak.
Karşıdan diyor nasıl görünüyor bir bakın diyor. Bak.
Buğra.
Hocam 15 dakika 15 dakika beklemeyiz. Başlıyoruz hocam. Gelin abi de hocam.
Gerdirebilir miyiz? Afiş.
Oynama da kesiyor. Balıklara. Protesto biraz daha indir. Fotoğraf balıklara. Geri değilsin.
To the world community. The United Nations was established to protect international peace after the Second World War. Today, we women came with our children to the 78th anniversary of the United Nations to demand to stop the genocide has committed by Israel against Gaza women and children. The decisions taken by the UN Security Council for the protection of international peace and security are binding on the states, and the Security Council has the authority to impose sanctions in case of non-compliance with these decisions. However, the veto power held by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, the requirement for only 15 countries to reach a decision, the obligation for the remaining 178 member countries to implement these decisions, and the fact that decisions in the General Assembly, where all 193 member countries participate, are merely advisory, hinder the United Nations from protecting international law and order. The veto power held by the permanent members of the United Nations is not in line with the principles of justice, pluralism, and the equality of the states. Council members, by using or threatening to use their veto power, can shape the Council's agenda and pass decisions in line with their own wishes and interests, preventing decisions that do not suit their interests. Between 1946 and 2021, a total of 211 resolutions related to Palestine and Israel were vetoed by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. The most recent instance was Russia's resolution call for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza was rejected with no votes from the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Japan. It is not fair for even one country to have decisive weight in UN decisions and actions. This situation produces war, not peace, and brings oppression, not prosperity, to the world. The establishment of a more just, effective, and accountable Security Council should be ensured. The United Nations Charter stipulates that Security Council decisions are binding on member states. However, Israel did not comply with 62 Security Council resolutions from 2048 from 1948 to 2016. After Israel's occupation of West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, and Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, the Golan Heights in Syria, in 1967, UN Resolution 242 called for its withdrawal from the occupied territories. However, Israel, considered the occupying power, did not withdraw from these territories. According to international law, it is unacceptable for any state to invade the territory of a state or community by military force or the threat of military force. Occupying Israel continues to violate these resolutions and maintain its aggression because it has the unconditional support of the United States and assurance of its veto against any UN decision. Since October 7, Israel has been killing all civilians, including women, children, babies, and elderly. Even hospitals and schools, which should be the most protected places, are hit with phosphorus bombs. Israel's systematic application of illegal and disproportionate force in the occupied lands for years has taken the form of mass killings and genocide. Despite international law and many international agreements protecting human rights, innocent children and women are currently suffering the most physical, mental, and psychological harm in Gaza. Although Israel is a part to many international agreements, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children, the United Nations Convention Against Torture, and Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, it commits war crimes and crimes against humanity, and genocide in Gaza before the eyes of the world. The United Nations and UNICEF are complicit in all crimes committed. Children are children everywhere in the world. They must be protected at all times and in all circumstances. A child dies every 15 minutes in Gaza since October 7. And the international community is content to just watch this brutality and cruelty. According to the statement of the Ministry of Health in Gaza, 436 Palestinians, including 182 children, lost their lives in Israel's attacks on Gaza in the last 14 hours. The number of those killed increased to 5,087. Of those who died, 2,055 were children and 1,119 were women. The number of injured reached 15,273. 830 children are still under the rubble. Even the most basic human needs cannot be met in Gaza. Of the nearly 2 million people living under torture in an open-air prison, 600,000 were forced to leave their homes. There is no electricity in Gaza, there is no water in Gaza, there is no bread in Gaza, there is no clean air. There are constantly bombs being dropped, there is massacre, there is genocide. Now families write their names on wrists of their children so that they can be easily recognized in case they are shot. Children are dying in Gaza, babies are dying in Gaza, women are dying in Gaza. Mercy is dying in Gaza. Conscience is dying in Gaza. Humanity is dying in Gaza. If the United Nations and UNICEF cannot prevent massacres and genocide, then why do we have the United Nations? If they cannot prevent the brutal killings of babies, children, and women, why do we have the United Nations and UNICEF? What and whom do they serve? If they cannot achieve their declared goals, they should dissolve themselves and lock their doors. We protest the United Nations and UNICEF for failing to stop the crimes and the ongoing massacre, genocide, and brutality. We call on the people and states of the world to take initiative to end this genocide.